Hey guys, tonight we're not stepping into candlelit castles or halls of song. We're going somewhere colder, rougher, into a peasant hut around the year 1325. The walls are mud and sticks, the roof is thatch heavy with frost, and the only light is a rush candle burning low. This was winter in the Middle Ages. No glory, no shining armor. Just families huddled against months of hunger and silence. Snow sifted through the roof. Bread turned to stone. Wolves pressed closer to the edge of the fields. And every morning, you rose to do it all again. If this slow drift through history feels like your kind of bedtime company, you're welcome to tap like or subscribe. No pressure, only if it helps you unwind. And in the comments, share where you are and what time it is. It's soothing to know who else is awake, somewhere across the world. Now, let's set the mood. Dim the lights. Let the room settle into stillness. Maybe turn on a fan for that low, mechanical hum, or crack a window so the night air can creep in. Close your eyes for a second, and let time slip backward like sand falling through your fingers. Not an hour, not a century, but 700 years, until the world smells of smoke, wool, and damp earth. Close your eyes for a moment. The room around you fades. The hum of machines, the glow of screens, the softness of your bed, they dissolve like mist at dawn. In their place comes the weight of another world. The air grows rough, tinged with smoke and damp earth. The walls shrink, woven of sticks and mud. Wind presses through cracks, carrying the smell of livestock and ash. The floor hardens beneath you. The light dims to the flutter of a hearth, then fades altogether. 7 centuries peel away. It is no longer the 21st century. It is 1325, and survival is the only luxury you own. Chapter 1. Under thatch and frost. Wake up and bed. You wake to silence. Not the gentle kind, but the silence that means the fire has died. The air presses cold against your face, sharper than any alarm. Beneath you, straw shifts and scratches, stiff as old bristles. Somewhere in the bedding, a flea jumps, faithful as ever. Your mattress is only a sack of hay, pretending to be a bed. It feels like lying on a salad that gave up long ago. Today, people complain about memory foam being too firm. In 1325, you would gladly trade your soul for a memory foam brick. At least bricks don't stab your ribs at 3 in the morning. The hut groans with the wind. Every crack lets the cold slip in, like an invited guest. Walls are sticks and mud, smeared with dung for insulation. But the air still wins. You sleep shoulder to shoulder with family, children, even animals. Privacy is not a word in your world. When nature calls, there is no porcelain sanctuary. Only a bucket in the corner, or a shared pit outside. Streets double as sewers, and etiquette means shouting, "Watch out below," before tossing waste from a window. It is the medieval version of being polite, still miserable for everyone. Breakfast greets you with pottage, a thin stew stretched from yesterday's scraps. Bread is so hard it could double as a weapon. You dunk it in weak ale. Not for taste, but because water betrays you with disease. Today people sip lattes. In 1325, the only foam you see is on ale, and that is your entire hydration plan. Clothing is scratchy wool, layered on skins stiff with sweat and grease. Washing is rare in winter, so grime itself becomes insulation. Children waddle in swaddling until they resemble turnips. Shoes, if you are lucky, are wooden clogs. If not, rags wrap your feet, and you pray frostbite does not claim a toe. Your teeth ache constantly. You chew with caution. You rub them with twigs. But rot always wins. When the pain becomes unbearable, you turn to the barber surgeon. No anesthesia, only iron pliers and the cheerful promise to fix it. It is brutal, but survival rarely comes gently. The sun climbs. Work begins. Fields call whether you are ready or not. Men plough. Women labour twice, in the field and at home. Children lift tools as soon as they can stand. Complaints do not matter. Hunger does not listen. Weather does not forgive either. Summer scorches. Winter stings. Floors turn to mud in the rain. Beds freeze when frost arrives. A bad season does not ruin a day. It ruins lives. Through it all, religion sets the rhythm. Bells toll. Priests chant in Latin no one understands, but everyone obeys. To doubt is dangerous. To tithe is required. Comfort is offered, but control is enforced. And always, death hovers close. Children vanish before their first year. Adults rarely reach 40. Plague is still in the future, but famine is already here. Life is fragile, temporary, brutally short. Yet from this mud and hardship, giants still grew. And that leads us to the next part of our journey. A girl who rose from obscurity to shape an empire. Catherine the Great. House and no privacy. The hut groans as the wind presses against thin walls. Wattle-and-daub, sticks smeared with mud and dung, do little to keep the night out. Every draught curls in, sliding cold fingers around your toes. You are not alone here. You never are. Family, neighbours, even animals huddle close. Insulation is measured in bodies, not bricks. Privacy does not exist. Every cough, every shuffle, every whispered prayer belongs to the room. If one person turns over, the rest stir awake. The walls seem to breathe with you. Flimsy barriers against a world that keeps pushing in. Morning brings no kindness. The floor greets you with equal hostility. Not wood, not stone, only packed earth. Sometimes straw is spread across it, but it rots, flattens, and welcomes insects. Each step crunches or squishes depending on the season. If frost has set in, the cold seeps upward, a reminder that you live one thin layer above the dirt. Even breakfast offers little comfort. Pottage waits, thin, tired stew from yesterday's scraps. Bread is so hard you must dunk it to chew. You wash it down with weak ale, not for taste, but because water is treacherous. People die from drinking it, so ale, with its faint foam and sour bite, is the safer gamble. And so the day begins, not with joy, not with choice, but with endurance. Because here, in 1325, survival itself is the only luxury. Clothing and body grime. Clothing was never chosen for style, it was chosen to keep the body alive. A tunic of coarse wool scratches the skin, as if the sheep itself held a grudge. A cloak, stiff with age and smoke, hangs heavy on your shoulders, carrying the smell of goat and fire. Shoes, if you own them, are wooden clogs. If not, you bind rags around your feet and whisper a quiet hope that frostbite spares you tonight. Laundry is rare. To wash in winter means breaking ice at a stream, scrubbing until your hands turn blue, and waiting days for the cloth to dry stiff as wood. So dirt builds, sweat seeps in. Grease from cooking clings to the fibres. Smell and warmth mingle until they cannot be separated. Medieval weatherproofing, one layer of grime at a time, and beneath it all, the skin too grows weary. A cloth rub at the face, a scrape of ash on the arms. That is bathing. Fleas and lice travel with you as constant companions, proof that in this century you are never truly alone. So when you pull wool close around your chest, you don't think of elegance, you think of survival. And survival, in 1325, is fashion enough. Labour in the fields. The rooster doesn't care that you barely slept. At first light it crows, and the village begins to stir. The sun is your taskmaster, and its orders are clear. Mud clings to wooden clogs, or to bare feet calloused from years of walking the same furrows. Men lean into ploughs, women shoulder baskets, and children chase geese from the grain. No one is spared, for hunger is louder than complaint. Hours stretch without mercy, sunrise to sunset. There are no clocks, only the slow crawl of the sky. A hunk of bread at midday, a sip of ale when thirst gnaws. Then the body bends again, row after row, breath after breath. And yet, in the rhythm of cutting and carrying, of bending and lifting, there is something almost steady. Drown seedlings just as they wake. Storms flatten the last proud stalks of grain before they can be gathered. The year feels less like a cycle and more like a series of ambushes, each one timed to remind you who really rules. And yet, everyone bends, everyone endures. Families heap together with livestock in winter, turning breath into warmth. Children splash in mud puddles in summer, turning dirt into laughter. These are not comforts, but they are survival. So when you tilt your head to the sky, you don't ask for fair weather. You ask for weather you can endure. And in 1325, endurance itself was a kind of blessing. And yet, from this mud and hardship, giants still grew. From villages that barely held the cold at bay, rose voices that would one day command empires. One of them was a girl who began with nothing more than obscurity, but would be remembered as Catherine the Great. Let the embers dim. Keep your eyes half closed as we drift forward toward a quiet girl named Sophie, who will learn to wear a crown. The wind slips through thatch. Embers sigh and rest. Close your eyes. The night is cold, but you are warm. From straw and mud, history whispers toward a girl who will wear a crown. Chapter 2. Childhood and Rise of Catherine. Catherine the Great was not born with a crown upon her head. She entered the world in 1729 as Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, a minor German princess. Her name barely a ripple in Europe's endless dynastic tide. Her childhood was not grand. It was modest, sometimes stern. She lived in small, echoing rooms. She studied with strict tutors. Her parents whispered hopes of a good marriage. Nothing more. No one, not even Sophie herself, imagined she would rule the largest empire on earth. The household where she grew was not filled with jewels or banquets. It was filled with long corridors, the smell of old wood, and the sound of footsteps carrying news of debts and politics. Her father was a soldier, often absent, sometimes distant. Her mother was ambitious, restless, always pushing Sophie to shine a little brighter, to speak a little more cleverly, and so the girl learned quickly. Silence could be dangerous, words could be powerful. In those early years, Sophie walked gardens that were more mud than roses. She read books with pages stiff from too many hands before hers. She practiced dancing in rooms too cold for comfort, her slippers brushing against cracked wooden floors. And at night she wrote secret thoughts in little notebooks, where no one could see how hungry her mind had become. She was not dreaming of thrones yet. She was simply learning how to survive.
But survival has its own way of sharpening a spirit. By the time Sophie was a teenager, her sharp eyes and steady posture caught the notice of visitors. She was not the most beautiful, but she was magnetic. Her gaze lingered, her smile flickered, her words landed with a quiet weight. It was the kind of presence that could not be taught, the kind of presence that made powerful people pause, just long enough to wonder who she might become. Opportunity arrived not as a gift, but as a gamble. Word came that the Russian court, far to the east, was seeking a bride for the young Grand Duke Peter. Heir to the vast empire, awkward and unpredictable, but still, the key to a future unimaginable. Sophie's mother seized the chance, and Sophie, barely a young woman, was carried across frozen roads and unfamiliar towns toward a destiny she could not yet name. The journey to Russia was long, lined with candlelit inns and the low groan of carriage wheels. At each stop, Sophie listened. She absorbed the language. She studied the customs. She whispered Russian words to herself in the dark, like charms that might protect her when she arrived. By the time, the domes of St. Petersburg rose in the distance. The German girl was already reshaping herself, a new name waiting on her tongue. At the Russian court, she was baptized into the Orthodox faith. Her name was remade, Catherine. The transformation was both simple and profound. One day, Sophie. The next, Catherine. But beneath the change, her quiet resolve remained. She had seen courts before, in fragments, during her childhood abroad. She knew how to bow, when to laugh, when to hold her tongue, and though she was still only a guest, her presence began to weave itself into the rhythm of Russia. The marriage to Grand Duke Peter was not a fairy tale. He was distant, clumsy, often cruel in small ways. But Catherine, still barely out of girlhood, chose a different path than despair. She read, she studied, she charmed. She learned not just the language of Russia, but the pulse of its people, the spirit of its church, the ambition of its nobles. Where Peter stumbled, Catherine listened. Where Peter mocked, Catherine remembered. And piece by piece, she was building not just survival, but the outline of a throne. From the small rooms of her childhood to the glittering but dangerous halls of Russia, Catherine's rise was never loud. It was steady, patient, a quiet fire no one thought to fear until it began to light the whole empire. And this is where her true story begins. The candle gutters follow its thin smoke into longer corridors where winter waits and the palace never sleeps. The candle gutters, the name Sophie, fades like breath. In silence, Catherine glows, steady as a far dawn. Palace halls wait for her first quiet step. Chapter 3. Shadows of the Court. The palace does not sleep. Its corridors stretch endlessly, lined with flickering candles that paint tall, shivering shadows on stone walls. The fire in the hearth struggles against the cold, sputtering weakly, as if it too resents being here. Beyond the windows, snow piles high, muffling the world in white silence. Inside, however, silence is heavier still. Catherine enters this world as a bride, barely 15. The halls swallow her small figure, her breath a cloud in the winter air. She has traded her German childhood for Russia's frozen grandeur, for marriage to Grand Duke Peter. But what she finds is not warmth, not partnership, only distance. Peter, her husband, is restless, boyish, distracted. He loves his toy soldiers more than his new wife. Hours vanish as he drills wooden figurines in mock battles, while Catherine sits apart, watching, learning the art of patience. Affection is scarce, kindness rarer still. Marriage, for her, is not a haven but another cold corridor to endure. And yet Catherine does not break. She wraps herself in books like others wrap in cloaks. By candlelight, she devours histories, philosophies, French novels, smuggled into her chamber. She studies people too, how courtiers bow, how nobles whisper, how alliances are born over wine and vanish at dawn. In silence, she is building something sturdier than comfort. She is building herself. The court watches her, At first, with indifference. Then, with curiosity. She does not complain. She does not crumble. She smiles when spoken to, listens when others gossip, and remembers every word. Even in her quiet, she shines sharp eyes, steady composure, a dignity that makes the candles burn a little brighter when she passes. Peter remains what he has always been. Impulsive, childlike, unsteady. He drinks too much. He laughs too loud. And in his shadow, Catherine grows calm, deliberate, unshaken, while he plays at war with toys. She learns the war of survival in a palace that never forgives weakness. Nights are the hardest. The bed is wide, but Catherine lies alone in thought. Frost creeps along the window panes, patterns like broken crowns. She closes her eyes, not to dream, but to plan. Each disappointment is folded away, each slight remembered. She does not know when her moment will come, only that she must be ready. And so, in the quiet shadows of the court, a girl once brought here as a bride begins to transform. Not loudly, not yet, but with every book, every glance, every breath drawn against the cold, she sharpens into something more. Patience becomes her armor, knowledge, her weapon, where others see only a silent, obedient duchess. History is beginning to see Catherine the Great, because from the loneliness of that palace bed, from the chill of those endless halls, a plan is taking shape, a plan that will one day topple empires. Snow thickens on the windows. Hush now, history is holding its breath as resolve hardens into action. Frost clouds the window, but her plans burn slow. The silent bride folds patience around her shoulders like a cloak. Snow deepens, yet beneath it, embers redden. Chapter 4. Embers in the Snow. The palace grows quieter with each passing night. Not with peace, but with waiting. Every corridor feels longer, every shadow heavier, as if the walls themselves are bracing for change. Catherine walks softly through it all. Not yet a queen, but already learning how silence can be stronger than speech. Empress Elizabeth still shines in public, wrapped in jewels and ceremony. But in her chambers, the coughs echo longer, and courtiers trade glances they dare not speak aloud. The empire waits with her breath. Every flicker of her candle feels like the beat of a clock moving toward its end. Peter grows louder as the empress grows weaker. Wine stains his sleeves. His laughter cuts across banquets. His toy soldiers march across royal tables. What once looked like boyish play now feels dangerous, reckless in a court that measures every word. Allies begin to look away, but Catherine does not. She files every moment carefully, like a blade kept sharp for later. A son is born Paul, but the cradle is quickly taken to the Empress, for safety. Catherine smiles as expected, yet inside she learns something colder than the Russian winter. Even her children are not her own. She turns again to books, histories, philosophies, French novels hidden in plain sight. Each page becomes armor, each lesson another stone in the foundation she is quietly building. Knowledge grows where affection does not. Friends begin to gather, one by one. A lady in waiting who whispers news, a clerk who knows when to stay silent, a captain whose steady gaze offers unspoken trust. Individually, they are nothing. Together, they are snowflakes, forming a drift strong enough to hold her weight. Among them stands Grigory Orlov, a soldier, broad-shouldered, warm-voiced, his loyalty as steady as his step. Catherine does not rush toward him like fire. Instead, she cups the spark gently, hiding it from the wind, careful not to let it burn too soon. Winter deepens. The river hardens into glass. Sleigh bells ring through frozen streets, and in the barracks whispers stir with the steam of shared bread. Her name drifts into the air. Catherine spoken softly, like a secret warming itself in the cold. Meanwhile, Elizabeth weakens. Silk gowns cannot soften her failing breath, nor incense mask the scent of illness that hangs in the palace halls. Each step Catherine takes past, her door feels heavier, each night more certain that history is drawing close. She kneels alone in the chapel. No bargains, only a vow to endure, to wait. And when the moment comes, to act without hesitation. The stone beneath her knees is freezing, yet she does not move. Patience has become her armor, and resolve her quiet prayer. Snow falls without sound outside the palace. Inside, the clock continues its slow, steady turn. The moment has not come, but it is near, so near she can almost feel its breath in the winter air. In the grand halls, servants move softly, their eyes down, their steps careful. Everyone senses the shift, though no one dares to speak it aloud. Even the walls seem to lean closer, as if listening for the next name that will command them. Catherine's allies grow bolder in whispers. Conversations held over candlelight, glances exchanged across corridors, small signs that trust is gathering. She does not press them. She only waits, steady as the snow outside. When she finally lies down at night, it is not to dream, but to prepare. Her embers are hidden under ash, her armor invisible in silence. She waits for history's hand to stir the flame, and knows, when it does, she will be ready. Hold that breath a moment longer. When it leaves your lips, bells will toll, and the morning will change everything. The vow drifts into night air, light as ash. Snow buries sound, but not resolve. When the bells call morning, the embers will rise. Chapter 5. The cool morning comes grey and heavy. The bells toll, not for ceremony, but for change. Elizabeth is gone. The court mourns, but the morning feels thin, like frost over stone. Peter is Tsar now. At last, the boy with wooden soldiers holds the empire of flesh and blood, but the crown sits poorly, too large, too heavy, too quick to slip. He mocks the church. He insults the guards. He drinks in uniform, staggers through halls, and threatens those who once saluted him. The nobles frown behind their sleeves. The army whispers behind closed doors. Catherine watches. She does not speak against him. She does not need to. Every day, his carelessness writes her future. Every laugh too loud, every insult too sharp, every foolish order becomes another stone laid on her side of the scale. The people see it too. They gather in taverns, muttering. They pray for bread, for dignity, for someone who looks less like a child wearing borrowed boots. The empire feels restless, like ice groaning before it breaks. Catherine prepares quietly. Allies are not summoned with trumpets, but with soft knocks on wooden doors. Officers lean close in dim chambers. Priests murmur blessings under their breath. Each small gesture, another thread in the net that will hold her when she leaps. The Orloff brothers stand at her side. Soldiers loyal not only with arms but with hearts. Grigory, with his steady presence, a bond built in silence, sealed in trust. Through them, Catherine's reach extends into the barracks, into the city, into the veins of Russia itself. One night, the decision hardens like frost. There is no more waiting, no more patience. The crown is already hers, she only needs to pick it up. Dawn breaks pale. Catherine rides out in military dress, boots firm in the stirrups, cloak heavy on her shoulders. The soldiers see her, not as a guest, not as a foreign bride, but as the leader they have been waiting for. One by one, they kneel. Not to Peter, to her. The sound is quiet at first, boots striking earth, metal clinking softly, but in that silence, the empire changes. Peter flees. A palace in the countryside becomes his cage. He writes an abdication, his hand trembling, his crown already lost. Promises of safety are made, but history seldom honors promises. 8 days later, he is gone. No one looks too closely at how. Catherine does not weep. She does not flinch. She walks into the winter palace as though she had always belonged there. Not loudly, not with feasts or fanfare, but with the stillness of inevitability. Candles burn, snow falls, and in the hush of that moment, a German princess has remade herself. No longer Sophie, no longer the silent bride, but Catherine, autocrat of all the Russias. The empire exhales, the palace bends, and history tilts on its axis, quiet but permanent. The clatter fades. What remains is the weight of rule. Steady your heartbeat as we enter the room where power learns its price. Boots fall silent, A trembling hand signs away power. The crown finds its rightful brow as if it had always waited. The city exhales, and history turns over in its sleep. Chapter 6. Catherine's Rule and Contradictions. The throne is no longer empty. Catherine sits upon it, the weight of furs across her shoulders, the glitter of a crown that once felt unimaginable. Around her, courtiers bow deeply, not with love, but with recognition. The empire has a new voice, and it speaks softly, but firmly. She brings reforms with careful steps, schools for nobles' daughters, letters exchanged with philosophers in Paris. She copies the language of enlightenment onto Russian parchment, words of reason, of progress, of light. Yet the land beneath those words is heavy with serfs, millions bound to soil, to lords, to lives that never change. Catherine reads Voltaire by candlelight, then signs decrees that keep peasants in chains. Contradiction becomes her daily companion. Diplomacy stretches across borders. She bargains, she flatters, she pushes. Poland is carved, territory by territory, until maps bend to her will. The Black Sea opens, warm and glittering, a prize generations had chased. Russia grows broader, prouder, louder. But growth has a cost. Rebellion stirs. Pugachev rises in the south, claiming to be Peter returned, claiming fire, claiming vengeance. Peasants rally, villages burn, the empire trembles. Catherine answers not with mercy, but with steel. The revolt is crushed, and silence falls heavy once more. Behind the crown, there is still a woman. Her private life is restless, filled with lovers who drift in and out like seasons. Some stay long enough to steady her. Others vanish, leaving only whispers. The court gossips, but the empress does not pause. She loves art, loves beauty, loves the weight of ideas. The hermitage grows from her vision rooms filled with canvases, statues, scrolls, each one a fragment of eternity preserved against the Russian frost. While outside, peasants till fields that will never be theirs. Inside, she builds a palace of thought. Splendor above, hardship below. Time moves, slow and relentless. Her hair grays, her face hardens, but her presence never softens. Catherine remains steady, commanding, unwilling to release the power she seized. Even as contradictions deepen progress and oppression, brilliance and cruelty, her empire does not look away. And so history leaves her not as a saint, not as a villain, but as something heavier, a ruler who built, who conquered, who dreamed in philosophy, yet ruled in iron. Catherine the Great. Great not because she was flawless, but because she was vast, impossible to ignore. Her shadow stretching across the century, set the crown down beside the candle. Far to the west, the jungle is calling us inward, toward a chamber dusted red. Decrees glitter by candlelight. Fields darken beyond the glass. Enlightenment and iron weave together like lace. The map widens, but sleep narrows. Chapter 7. The Red Queen of Palenque. Deep in the jungles of Chiapas, the ruins of Palenque lie hidden. Vines creep along stone walls. Trees press roots into temples. The air is thick with humidity, filled with the drone of insects and the occasional cry of a bird. It feels alive. And beneath it, the past still breathes. In 1994, archaeologists entered a chamber sealed for more than 1,000 years. The door was narrow, the air stale. Their lamps flickered against walls painted not with color, but with time. And then they saw it, a sarcophagus waiting in silence, its lid heavy, its presence heavy still. When it was opened, the chamber exhaled. A cloud of dust shimmered in the light, glowing red, cinnabar mercury ore ground fine, a powder both precious and dangerous. It clung to every surface, staining stone, seeping into the air, coating the bones that rested within. The room seemed to breathe red, and the figure within was named the Red Queen. She was not buried in poverty. Around her, offerings lay scattered, delicate and deliberate. Jade beads, still green after centuries, a mask shaped to fit her face, a ghostly second skin, shell ornaments, obsidian blades, ceramic bowls. each object more than a possession, each one a message sent with her into eternity. The mask spoke of renewal. Jade, the color of growing leaves, was life made solid. The shells whispered of water, of fertility, of oceans distant yet sacred. The obsidian blades shimmered darkly, sharp as truth, used for ritual as much as war. Together, they wrapped her not just in wealth, but in symbols. And then there was the cinnabar. It covered her body like fire, like blood. To the Maya, red was not just a color, it was the setting Sunday. It was sacrifice. It was the passage into the underworld. By cloaking her in crimson dust, they set her apart, preparing her for a journey beyond life. But who was she? Some say Tsakbu Ajao, consort of Pakal the Great, a queen beside a king, now resting in her own chamber of reverence. Others suggest she was a priestess, keeper of sacred rites. Still others believe she was a ruler herself, one whose name has been lost, but whose power lingers. Each theory flickers like candlelight glimpses without certainty. The chamber itself deepens the mystery. Its walls whisper with glyphs too weathered to speak clearly. The ceiling seems to press downward, close, as though the earth itself was guarding her. To step inside was to feel less like a scientist, more like an intruder in a sacred silence. And there was danger here. Cinnabar is toxic, its dust harmful to lungs, to blood, to breath. The archaeologists wore masks, their voices muffled, their movements careful. Yet still, they felt the weight of the red air, as though even the tomb resisted being opened. The queen had slept for centuries. To disturb her was to risk both body and spirit. Above her chamber rises the Temple of the Inscriptions, steep stairways, weathered carvings, glyphs that still speak of gods and kings. The Maya built not just monuments, but cosmologies. Every stone a prayer, every angle aligned with the heavens. The temple is not only architecture, it is a map of life, death, and rebirth. And so the Red Queen rests within that cycle, her mask green with life, her shroud red with death. Together, they tell a story older than any name carved in stone. The story of endings that are beginnings, of blood that nourishes, of silence that still speaks. Modern science has tried to solve her puzzle. DNA tested from bone and tooth. Comparisons with Pakal's lineage. Clues, fragments, possibilities. But no final answer. Her name remains unspoken, her story unfinished. And perhaps that is why she endures. Not because we know her, but because we do not. Her mystery holds us more tightly than her identity ever could. She is less a woman now than a symbol, a shadow wrapped in red dust, still commanding silence across centuries. The jungle closes in, again. The air hums. The temples crumble slowly into the earth. But beneath it all, in the chamber lined with cinnabar, the Red Queen waits, wrapped in mystery, crowned in silence, and somehow still alive in our imagination. From crimson dust to cobalt light, walk softly with me now to a blue house where pain learns to paint. Cinnabar dust holds its breath like a sunset stilled. The jade stays green, though her name is gone. The jungle folds shut, keeping her secret warm underground. Chapter 8. Frida Kahlo. The Art and the Arche. The story shifts now. From jungle ruins to a small house in Mexico City, its walls painted bright blue. But inside, the air carries the weight of silence and struggle. This is where Frida Kahlo was born, and this is where she returned, again and again, through a life bound by pain and color. Her childhood was not carefree. Polio came early, leaving one leg thinner, weaker. Children whispered. She walked with a limp, her skirts longer than most, her gaze sharper than any of them expected. Already, she was learning how to turn wounds into defiance. But the true fracture came at 18. A bus ride, a collision, metal through flesh, bones shattered, spine broken, months pinned flat beneath plaster. The ceiling became her sky. The brush, her only flight. From her bed, she painted mirrors of herself. Self-portraits, again and again, her own face staring back. Not vanity, necessity. The only subject that would not abandon her was herself, and so she captured not beauty, but survival. The pain in her spine, the loneliness in her eyes, the defiance in her gaze. Her paintings carried symbols like whispers, monkeys curling close, roots growing from her body, thorns pressing into her skin, bleeding but unbroken. Each canvas was not just art, it was confession, protest, declaration. They were diaries written in oil and color, each stroke another heartbeat. She found love in Diego Rivera, love that was fierce, chaotic, sometimes cruel. He was larger than life, a painter of walls and revolutions. She was smaller in frame, but her work burned just as bright. Together they were storms, colliding, separating, returning, their house filled with arguments, laughter, betrayal, and unshakable attachment. Her politics were as bold as her colors. She welcomed revolutionaries, spoke of workers, wrote of justice, but her real revolution was quieter. To paint the truth of a body in pain, to make suffering visible, to show that beauty could sit beside anguish without apology. As her health worsened, her art deepened. She painted through operations, through nights of fever, through days when walking was impossible, each canvas more vivid, as if she could trap life before it slipped away. Her body weakened, but her brush stayed steady. Exhibitions came, first abroad, then at home. Crowds stared, shocked, unsettled, moved. In her final show in Mexico, she arrived in a bed carried into the gallery. Visitors filed past, unsure whether to look at the art or at the woman lying among it. Frida, smiling through pain, offered both. She died at 47, too young, yet her image lived on braided hair, joined eyebrows, flowers like flames. She became more than a painter. She became a symbol, for women, for the disabled, for the broken who refuse to hide their scars. Her art still hangs in bright rooms today, but the ache behind it hums quietly, like the echo of a heartbeat that has not stopped. Frida Kahlo, an artist who painted not dreams, not illusions, but herself, raw and unyielding, and in doing so, gave voice to millions who carried silent pain. The house in Mexico still stands, walls still blue, rooms filled with relics of her life. Visitors walk softly, as if stepping into her presence, and in the silence, one truth remains clear. Frida never needed perfection to become immortal. She needed only honesty painted in red, in green, in the ache of every line. Lay the brushes down. Let the colors settle on your eyelids as we return to the quiet of your own room and close the night. The blue fades. The night waits. Sand rises. The desert exhales. Books breathe softly beneath clay walls. Follow me now into Timbuktu, Chapter 9, Pages in the Sand. A night in Timbuktu. The desert does not rush. It exhales in long, slow breaths. The dunes shift like a tide that never breaks. At night, the air cools. The wind carries dust like whispers across stone walls. Timbuktu, half legend, half city, settles into its silence. Inside a clay house, a lamp is lit. Its flame is steady but small, a single star against the wide, dark Sahara. The room smells of leather and ink, of paper cured in gum arabic, of centuries pressed into fragile skins. A scribe bends low over his work. The reed pen scratches gently, steady as breath. He writes in Arabic, the letters flowing like dunes across the page. He is not alone. All around him, shelves rise, simple wooden frames, heavy with bound manuscripts. Astronomy, medicine, law, poetry, pages copied and recopied. Each stroke of ink another stitch in a fabric meant to last longer than kingdoms. Outside, the city dozes. Merchants shutter their stalls. Camels kneel in the sand. Children sleep in courtyards cooled by clay jars of water. But within this house, time holds still. Every word the scribe copies feels like defiance. Empires may crumble, rulers may pass, but a line of ink, if saved, can outlive them all. He He pauses to dip his pen again. The lamp flickers. Shadows of the shelves climb the wall, tall and uneven, like guardians standing watch. He knows what he copies could be lost tomorrow, burned in war, scattered in raids, buried by neglect. So he copies anyway. Because memory is fragile, but forgetting is lethal. On the shelf behind him rests a book bound in red leather. It holds calculations of stars, how they rise, how they arc, how they vanish into morning. Another, wrapped in faded blue cloth, whispers of remedies, roots for fever, leaves for wounds, words of prayer that calm the restless mind. These are not treasures of gold or silver. They are treasures of survival. Wisdom made portable. The city itself breathes knowledge. Scholars gather in courtyards at dawn. Students sit cross-legged, repeating verses until the air hums with rhythm. Traders bring stories with their salt and gold. News from Cairo, songs from Marrakesh, myths from far across the desert. In Timbuktu, the Sahara is not emptiness. It is a road, and knowledge rides it like a caravan. But even here, safety is thin. The scribe remembers rumors, soldiers who burned books for warmth, kings who feared words sharper than swords. That is why, when he finishes a page, he whispers a short prayer, then slides it into the pile. Every line is both fragile and sacred, balanced between memory and ash. Midnight deepens. The lamp hisses low. He ties the manuscript shut with a strip of leather, presses it to his forehead, a gesture of gratitude, a promise to return tomorrow. He slides it into a crowded shelf. Each book, a small heartbeat in the silence. Beyond the walls, the desert continues. It's slow, shifting. Stars scatter across the sky in silver arcs. The Milky Way glows bright, a river above the sand. It mirrors the river of ink flowing across his desk, a reminder that both stars and words are maps, guiding those who look closely. At last, the scribe blows out the lamp. The room exhales. Darkness folds around the shelves, but the words remain. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside, the books dream for it. For centuries they will wait. Wrapped in leather, buried in sand, guarded by walls that crumble slowly. Long after voices fade, long after the scribe's bones return to dust, the pages will still whisper, "We were here. We knew. We tried to remember." The desert presses its palm against the city, and the library rests fragile, patient, eternal. From desert silence, a lamp glows. Stone walls hold a single flame. Florence waits with restless skies. Galileo lifts his gaze tonight. The lamp dies, but ink stays warm as sand at dusk. The desert shifts, yet the page holds its path. Tomorrow the flame will return tonight. The words, "Sleep." Chapter 10. The Lamp of Galileo. A quiet room in Florence. Stone walls, a single desk, and on it, a lamp. Its flame sways. Not bright, but steady. Enough to bend shadows across parchment. Enough to keep a man awake long after the city has gone to sleep. That man is Galileo. Curious eyes, ink-stained fingers, a mind unwilling to rest. Outside, bells toll midnight. Dogs bark distantly in the alleys. Merchants sleep. Beggars curl against doors. The city dreams, but Galileo leans forward. Glass lenses rest in his hands. Not jewels, not ornaments, just tubes, carefully ground, carefully aligned. He lifts the telescope. At first blur, a smear of light, a trembling point, but then the blur sharpens, the smear divides, and moons appear. Not one, not two, but four. Small companions circling Jupiter, each one defying the old order. He freezes. The air feels thicker. The lamp hums louder. Even the night seems to lean closer, to listen. Here is proof that Earth is not the only center, that the heavens move in ways the ancients never dared to write. He breathes out slowly. The flame flickers with him, and the night grows wider. Days turn to weeks. Observations pile high. Notes scrawled in margins. Diagrams scratched in haste. numbers marching across parchment. Each night, the lamp burns lower, but each night, the universe grows larger. He watches shadows slip across the face of the moon. Not smooth, but jagged. Not divine marble, but scarred stone, pitted with craters. He sketches mountains. He counts valleys. The heavens are no longer perfect. They are broken, like earth, and suddenly, less distant. Word spreads. Students whisper. Merchants boast of Florence's genius. Scholars lean close, both hungry and afraid. But in churches, brows lift, whispers turn heavy. The telescope is both marvel and threat. What Galileo sees cannot be unseen, yet not everyone wants to look. Still, he writes. He dares to publish. He dares to say aloud that the earth moves, that the sun holds steady, that the old maps are wrong. At first, applause, then caution, then anger. The church summons him. Questions pile heavier than books. Do you deny what you have written? Do you bend, or do you break? The lamp burns as he answers. Words careful, voice steady. He bends enough to survive, but inside, the fire does not go out. Later, they say he whispered, and yet, it moves. Maybe true, maybe legend, but the whisper feels real. It feels like the lamp itself speaking, refusing to dim. Years pass. Galileo grows older. Eyes weaken. Body bends. Blindness comes. But even in darkness, his mind does not close. Assistants read aloud. He dictates answers. He imagines planets he cannot see, still circling in silence above. The lamp flickers lower. Wax pools at its base. Shadows gather thick in corners. But its rhythm remains. Not a blaze, not a roar, only a small, steady light that outlives the man who tended it. Because ideas do not die with bodies. They wander, they wait, they seed other minds. Centuries turn, Florence quiets, empires fade. But the lamp burns on in observatories built on mountains, in satellites that touch the edges of silence, in the hum of computers listening to galaxies. We still raise telescopes, we still listen to stars, and in every flicker of discovery, in every widening of the sky, Galileo's lamp is there. Small, frail, but enough. The lamp thins. The night listens. Another heat stirs the dark. Boots whisper under torn banners. A girl lifts a flame. Chapter 11. The Fire of Joan. The village of Domremy sleeps quietly. Fields stretch under a grey French sky. Cows stir slowly in wooden pens. Smoke drifts soft from thatched roofs. In one house, a girl prays. Her name is Joan. Just Joan. She is no queen, no noble. Only a farmer's daughter, barefoot, quiet. But her prayers feel different tonight. Voices whisper through the still air. Not of neighbors, not of family. She swears they come from heaven. Saints, she says, speak her name. They call her to a task, not weaving, not tending the fields, but to lift France from despair. The 100 Years' War drags endlessly on. Villages burn, armies clash, kings falter. England presses hard upon French soil. The Dauphin hides, crown still uncertain. Joan is young, only a girl, but fire burns steady in her chest. She believes God has chosen her. She believes she cannot turn away. At 17, she leaves her home. She walks muddy roads toward destiny, armor clumsy, sword too heavy. Yet her voice carries like a bell. Men laugh at first, then listen. Her faith steadies those around her. She speaks of victory, not defeat, of banners lifted, of courage reborn. At Orléans, she takes her place. The city starves, surrounded, near collapse. But Joan rides with banner raised, her white standard bright against smoke. The soldiers rally, the gates open. They strike hard, they drive the English. By week's end, the siege is broken. Orléans is free. France breathes again. Word spreads like fire through the land. A girl has led where men failed. The Dauphin crowns at Reims Cathedral. France sees hope in her eyes, but fire that burns too brightly consumes. Betrayal waits, patient in the shadows. Captured in battle, sold for gold, Joan is delivered to her enemies. The trial is cruel, a trap. Questions twist, words turn against her. Priests press hard, judges sneer cold. Her voices are mocked as madness. Yet Joan does not bend or break. She stands firm, answers with faith. Her courage unsettles those who condemn. Her fire flickers, but does not die. At 19, the pyre awaits her. Crowds gather in Rouen Square, wood stacked high, ropes pulled tight, flames licking close around her feet. She prays once more, eyes lifted. She cries the name of Jesus. The fire swallows, the smoke rises. Ash scatters, but her spirit stays. France mourns, but also remembers. Her story grows larger than her life. Not just a girl, not just a soldier, but a saint. A symbol, a flame. Centuries pass, yet her fire remains. In paintings, in churches, in whispered prayers. The girl who believed, who dared, still walks in memory, still burns in faith. The flames dim, but do not fade. The square empties, yet echoes linger. A girl's courage outlives her years. Her fire still warms the centuries. The ash cools, streets empty, iron doors breathe in shadows, keys sleep in heavy pockets. Stone waits without a clock. Chapter 12. The Prison of the Bastille. Stone walls rise, grey and heavy. The Bastille towers over Paris streets. Its shadows stretch long, cold, endless. For centuries, it has swallowed men. Inside, corridors echo with silence. Chains rattle faintly in distant cells. The air is damp, sour, stagnant. Hope feels far, memory feels thin. Prisoners lie on straw, eyes hollow. Some forgotten, some accused, some inconvenient. Their names blur, their voices vanish. The Bastille keeps them, mute and buried. Letters are smuggled, scratched in dark. Ink runs thin, paper scarce, precious. Whispers float through cracks like smoke. Secrets live even where hope dies. Paris walks past its high gates. Merchants bargain, children chase stray dogs. Life hums outside, silence inside. The fortress swallows without returning names. But discontent grows, stone by stone. Taxes rise, bread thins, anger sharpens. The king feasts, the court dazzles, the city hungers, the people ache. By 1789, whispers turn to thunder. Crowds gather, restless, desperate, fierce. They march with pikes, with borrowed guns. Eyes fixed on the Bastille walls. Guards tremble. Cannon stand unmoved. But numbers swell. Chants pound louder. The gates crack. Doors splinter wide. Stone yields to fire. Steel. Will. The Bastille falls in a storm. Chains break. Cells open. Names return. Paris roars as walls collapse. The symbol of fear is ash. Yet history remembers not just rubble. It remembers the weight before collapse. The centuries of silence, of shadows. The fortress that taught men despair. The Bastille is gone, but not. Stones scattered, but echoes still remain. Every tyranny remembers its walls. Every people remember their fall. Dust settles along quiet boots. Paper rustles behind shutters. Ink warms in small spoons. A pen wakes the room. Chapter 13. The pen of Voltaire night gathers over quiet Fernie. Wind taps the shutters gently. A candle gutters, then steadies. Paper breathes beneath waiting hands. A pen lifts. It begins. He writes in quick, bright strokes. Ink runs like thin lightning. Sentences march, lean and sharp. They laugh, then suddenly bite. He signs a single name. Voltaire, restless, amused, awake. Outside, roads sleep under frost. Couriers dream in stable hay. But letters will ride soon. Across borders, past watchful gates. Words travel faster than horses. He argues with gentle knives. Polite salvos, elegant and lethal. Wit turns into quiet thunder. Kings feel it. Priests bristle. But readers smile in candlelight. The room smells of wax, paper. A stove ticks, cooling slowly. Books lean like listening friends. Their spines memorize every hour. His cough folds back into silence. He has lived many rooms. Paris salons, prisons, foreign inns. Exile tasted of bread crusts. Return tasted of sly applause. Always, the pen kept speaking. He fights small, piercing battles. A widow's plea, a son's innocence. The callous name crosses pages. He will not let go. Crush the infamous thing, he whispers. Censors scratch red through paragraphs. Printers hide type in cellars. Pamphlets slip into bakers' baskets. Words tuck beneath loaves, warm. Police search. Words pass anyway. He writes plays for crowded nights. He writes histories without trumpets. He writes fables with teeth. Even jokes learn to wound. Laughter becomes a lowered spear. Candles shrink into shallow cups. He sharpens quills on patience. Margins bloom with second thoughts. Footnotes bloom with hidden doors. Every page holds two paths. Friends arrive with wool coats. Snow falls from their shoulders. Tea steams in chipped porcelain. They argue softly, then grin. Disagreement ends with more questions. He knows power smiles politely. He knows power hates mirrors. So he polishes language daily. So the mirror cuts cleanly. So reflection becomes a blade. Night turns pages for him. He thanks it without looking. Stars hang like unwritten notes. He files them for later. Morning will claim the rest. Couriers knock before sunrise. Seals warm under candle drips. Wax hardens over careful words. He sends them into weather. He trusts storms to carry truth. Some letters never arrive whole. Some arrive scented with seawater. Some arrive with fingerprints, smudged. Every smudge feels like witness. Silence cannot smudge anything. He laughs at solemn faces. He bows, but never kneels. He flatters, then moves furniture. Chairs scrape. Everyone sits differently. Etiquette survives. Certainty does not. He quarrels with old doctrines. He keeps friends with daylight. Superstition knocks. He smiles faintly. Try reason, he says, pouring tea. Steam writes small sermons upward. Villagers bring petitions, folded tight. Names tremble on thin paper. He opens each careful plea. He answers with legal thunder. Compassion wears a barrister's wig. The stove pops, settles down. Snow hushes the path outside. Geese mutter near the pond. Fernie sleeps, one lamp wakes. Its light is almost enough. He writes of tolerance, slowly. Not sweetness, but sturdy carpentry. Doors widened, locks removed gently. Rooms fitted for many voices. Hospitality as political architecture. He edits jokes like treaties. He edits treaties like jokes. Both must close on time. Both must travel light, durable. Both should survive angry weather. Hands tremble in sudden chill. He cups the candle base. Small heat climbs through bones. Age taps on his sleeve. He nods, keeps writing anyway. The pen pauses, then listens. Silence answers with soft creaks. House settles. Books lean closer. Sentences line up. Hats off. They march out into snow. France tosses between fever dreams. Bread riots, whispers, new pamphlets. Bastille shadows cross the Seine. He hears them from Fernie. He writes toward the rumble. He knows change moves. Crookedly. He knows mercy moves straighter. He chooses the straighter road. Even when mud clings high. Even when boots fill slowly. Sometimes the pen writes music. Sometimes the music writes pen. Either way, minds begin humming. Humming grows into low choirs. Choirs travel better than armies. He folds the final sheet. Wax seals another traveling lantern. One more light in saddlebags. One more bridge between strangers. One more thread through night. Dawn stains the window pale. He leans back, eyes burning. The room tilts, then steadies. Snow brightens like clean paper. He smiles at the day. Voltaire stands, joints protesting softly. He thanks the chair, absurdly polite. Courtesy matters to stubborn letters. They behave when handled kindly. They obey when trusted first. On shelves, volumes breathe gently. Their dust is honest work. He touches spines like foreheads. Old friends, unglamorous, loyal, durable. They nod without making noise. He walks the room in circles, thinking by steps, by footprints. Floorboards keep small confidences. They know where arguments resolved. They know where laughter won. Outside, hooves clatter, then fade. A letter gallops toward Paris. Another veers toward Prussia's rooms. Another crosses Alps by candles. Ideas take mountain passes lightly. He returns to the desk. He sharpens a fresh quill. He smooths the waiting paper. The day waits. Polite, patient. He begins at the beginning. The candle lowers, but lingers. The pen cools, yet points forward. Letters ride out, bridled light. They cross snows, wake doorways. Wax cools. Seals harden slowly. Footsteps climb wooden circles. A drum teaches the hush. Masks breathe before names. Chapter 14. The stage of Shakespeare. The theatre waits in wooden hush. A circle of timbers, open to sky. Rain drips through gaps in that roof. Crowds press close. Breath thick, restless. The pit smells of ale and mud. Merchants jostle. Apprentices shout. Beggars laugh. Coins clink into calloused hands. Seats rise steep, filled with nobles. Every face tilts toward the stage. A drum sounds. Silence leans closer. Curtain stirs. Voices warm behind it. Words are ready, sharpened by ink. Shakespeare waits in shadow, lips moving. Not prayer. Not boast, just rhythm. Actors step forward, plain men, rough. Yet with words they transform utterly. A king rises in threadbare robes. A queen weeps in borrowed jewels. A ghost whispers through candle smoke. The crowd follows without question. They know straw roofs, dirty streets. But here, they taste another world. Falstaff's laughter shakes their ribs. Hamlet's doubt weighs on their breath. Shakespeare writes for all ears. For fishmongers leaning on elbows. For courtiers half hiding their smiles. For boys who play queens. For girls who cannot attend. He steals from history's cupboards. Kings rise, fall, then rise again. He steals from whispers of taverns. Love letters smuggled in ale. He steals from his own shadow. The quill scratches late into night. Candles cough, windows rattle, streets sleep. Phrases tumble, collide, then arrange. Words bloom with secret weight. Tomorrow, they will breathe aloud. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. The line loops like a clock. The stage will hold it gently. The crowd will carry it home. Centuries will not put it down. London itself becomes a stage. Plague shutters doors, theatres close. Players scatter, scripts fold quietly. Yet ink waits, never impatient. The stage will open again. His friends collect the plays. They argue over commas, margins, cuts. They bind them, heavy as scripture. First, folio rests like a heartbeat. Without it, half would vanish. He does not live to see it. The stage moves on without him. But the words stay, still stubborn. They cling to tongues, to syllables. They ask to be spoken again. Today, the globe rises rebuilt. Actors pace its round boards. Tourists lean in. Children laugh. The words step out once more. Still sharp, still tender, still alive. The stage darkens. The boards rest. The crowd drifts into London night. But the echo remains soft, unyielding. A whisper in every actor's chest. The boards empty. Night lingers. A room folds around keys. Strings hum through the wood. Silence learns a tune. Chapter 15. The Silence of Beethoven. A small room in Vienna. Curtains drawn. Candle guttering low. Sheets of paper scatter the desk. Notes march, stumble, leap, collide. Ink stains fingers. Quill scratches slow. Outside, carriages rattle on cobbles. Laughter spills from tavern doors. The city hums with careless noise. But inside this room, a struggle. Sound fades, stubborn and uneven. Beethoven leans close, head tilted. He waits, straining for a chord. What once roared now only flickers. Music reaches him through walls, muffled. Deafness creeps like a thief. He slams fist upon the keys. The strings respond, but faintly. Vibration hums through the wood. He bends, presses ear to frame. He feels what he cannot hear, and still he writes. He scratches lines across staves. He builds storms inside silence. Symphonies bloom, fierce and defiant. Quartets whisper, intimate and raw. The world hears genius. He hears ghosts. Applause shakes halls he cannot sense. Crowds rise, faces shining, tears fresh. But Beethoven only bows stiffly. Inside, silence answers silence. He writes the ninth. Deaf already. Voices soar. Ode to joy. The choir thunders. The orchestra surges. He does not hear yet knows. Each measure burns through his bones. Friends touch his arm, turn him. He sees their faces rapt, weeping. He sees hands clapping, rising, roaring. Only then he understands the triumph. His music reached where he could not. Illness deepens, body falters, breath short. But the pen remains unbroken. Sketches pile even near the end. Ideas half finished, fragments eternal. The silence cannot take them all. In 1827, he dies. The city grieves, streets overflowing. Tens of thousands walk in mourning. A deaf man, yet not silenced. His voice etched into centuries. Today, the notes still gather. Orchestras tune, choirs breathe deep. The baton rises, the hall waits. And when the first chord strikes, Beethoven lives again. Unstoppable. The candle dies, the ink dries. The music does not end. It threads through halls, through centuries. It waits in silence, then returns. We leave Vienna's dim chamber now. Follow me into another age. Not sound this time, but vision. Paint and canvas, light and shadow. The restless hand of Van Gogh. The quiet that remains. And so the journey quiets. From straw beds in medieval huts, to the frozen corridors of Catherine's Russia, to the crimson tombs of Palenque, to the blue walls of Frida's Mexico, history has carried us through cold, hunger, power, and pain. It is easy to look back and shiver at the winters with no fire, at the rulers whose choices crushed or lifted millions, at the mysteries buried in dust, and the lives cut short by illness, accident, or despair. But there is another thread too. Through all the centuries, humans still found ways to endure, to light candles against the dark, to paint against the silence, to love even when it hurt. Tonight, as you lie in your own bed, you may feel the hum of a fan, the weight of a blanket, the warmth of clean sheets. These small comforts, things the past could not promise, are worth a quiet gratitude. History is harsh, but you are here, alive, breathing, surrounded by light and warmth. And that is no small triumph. If a face, a sentence, or a silence from tonight stayed with you, you are welcome to return. There are more stories, more forgotten names, more ghosts waiting to be heard. So if you'd like this voice to find you again, leave a gentle like, subscribe to my channel, or share in the comments who you'd like to meet. Next, another queen, another war, another hidden life in the dark. For now, close your eyes, rest. You've walked through enough history for one night. Good night. And from the shadows of the past to the stillness of your room, we'll meet again.